So you're a dog owner in Saratoga Springs, and you know what a great place this is for our dogs. But, with our community growing so fast, figuring out who can help you and your dog thrive can feel like a huge task. Let's break it down and make it easy. Just think about your daily life here for a second. One day you might be enjoying a walk along Utah Lake, and the next you're navigating a brand new subdivision with all its new sights and sounds. A really good training plan isn't some one-size-fits-all thing. It's got to be built for the real world that you and your dog actually live in, right here in town. Here's what we're going to cover. First, why training specifically for Saratoga Springs matters. Then, how to figure out a trainer's qualifications. We'll look at different programs and what they cost locally. I'll also give you a handy checklist for when you talk to trainers. And finally, we'll go over the local rules and some great parks. Okay, let's kick things off with what makes training in our city unique. A trainer who really gets our local environment can prep your dog for the specific stuff we see every day. And this is really where it gets practical, right? We're talking about teaching your dog to stay cool when kids on bikes whiz by, or to walk nicely on a leash by the lake. Or how about handling a busy shopping center without getting totally freaked out? That, right there, is what a well-trained dog looks like in our community. So now you know what you need to train for. But how do you find the right person for the job? Well, this next part is all about understanding what makes a trainer truly qualified, starting with how they train and what kind of credentials they have. You're going to hear this term a lot, and for good reason. Positive reinforcement is hands down the most effective and humane way to go. It's all about rewarding the behaviors you want to see. This approach builds a really strong bond of trust with your dog, and it creates changes that actually last because your dog learns to want to work with you. Now, these letters might just look like alphabet soup, but they're a pretty good filter. You see, Utah doesn't actually require trainers to be licensed. So certifications like the CPD-TKA, that stands for Certified Professional Dog Trainer Knowledge Assessed. They show that a trainer has put in the work, studied, and passed some tough exams. It's a solid sign they're committed to humane, effective methods. All right, let's get down to the brass tacks. We're going to look at the different kinds of training programs you can find and what you can probably expect to pay for them right here in the Saratoga Springs area. So your two most common choices are group classes and private lessons. Group classes are awesome for practicing focus with other dogs around, and they're usually easier on the wallet. But if you're dealing with something specific at home, like your dog going bonkers when the doorbell rings, private lessons are often the way to go because you're tackling the problem right where it happens. And for those of us with really packed schedules, there are a couple of other options. Day training is where a trainer works one-on-one with your dog while you're at work. And then there are board and train programs, which are like an immersive boot camp for your pup. For these, it's just really important to have a plan for how you'll keep up the training when your dog comes back home. Okay, so let's talk about the money side of things. Here's a general idea of local costs. A puppy or group class that runs for a few weeks could be anywhere from $140 to $280. A single private lesson is usually between $100 and $180. You can see the more intensive options, like board and train, are a much bigger investment, but this chart should give you a pretty good feel for what to budget. All right, you've done your homework, you know your budget, and you found a few trainers that look promising. The next step is that first conversation, the consultation. And trust me, going in prepared with the right questions makes all the difference. Think of this as your cheat sheet. You'll want to double-check they use positive methods and ask about their certifications. A great question is, how will you tailor this plan for my dog? And definitely ask how you'll both track progress and what you're supposed to do between sessions. Remember, the work you put in is just as important as the trainers. And finally, let's tie all this great training back to our local community. A well-behaved dog makes for a happy neighborhood, and knowing the local rules just helps everyone get along. This one's simple, but it's a big one. In any public space here, sidewalks, trails, you name it, your dog needs to be on a leash. And the standard is a 6-foot leash. That's why having good leash manners is just not optional for getting out and about in our city. Besides the leash law, just remember that rabies shots are required by the state. And here's one where training really helps keep the peace with your neighbors. Excessive barking can actually be considered a public nuisance, so good training can help you manage that and keep everybody happy. So, where can you take your dog to work on all these new skills? Well, the dog park over at Jacob's Ranch is great for practicing recall off-leash in a safe, fenced area. And for on-leash practice with some real-world distractions like kids and families, Pelican Bay Park and the trails at Utah Lake State Park are both fantastic choices. Because when it comes down to it, that's the real goal, isn't it?
Finding the right trainer isn't just about fixing a behavior problem. It's about building a confident, happy dog that you can truly share your life with. We wish you the best of luck on your training journey. A well-trained dog just makes everything easier and more fun, from walks around the block to having friends over and just enjoying everything our wonderful town has to offer.